The Aztecs, or Mexica as they called themselves, lived quite the interesting life. Along with their affinity for using a heck of a lot of Q's, Z's, and X's, and writing just the wildest words in their language of Nahuatl, they participated in some of the most mysterious things I've ever seen. So, let's find out who they were. Here's 10 mysterious things ancient Aztecs did. There's no I in team, but there are 2 in sacrifices. And the best way to be a team player in Aztec society was to take one for the team. I feel like sacrifices are a pretty well known part of Aztec culture, but when you look into it, there's a bunch of theories as to why they believed they needed to be made. See, the Aztecs, they had quite a few gods, over 200 in fact, and they believed that when they made a mistake or just wanted to show their debt, they had to, One god that needed sacrifice was the sun god. Okay, here we go. Huitzilopochtli, who was constantly facing off against darkness, was the sun god. Some, to keep our friend with a very long name alive, feel like they had to fuel it with human heart. And the scary thing is a lot of people saw becoming a sacrifice as an honor. I mean, to be willing to give up your own life in order to keep the entire universe in one piece is a pretty big responsibility. But someone's got to do it. Plus, it's a one-way ticket to the afterlife, where you'll be fighting alongside all your favorite hard-to-pronounce gods. Now, doesn't that sound like fun? Now, speaking of our friend Huitzilopochtli, I think, along with being the god of the sun, he was also the god of war, which is quite a bit of responsibility if you ask me. And so I previously mentioned those who volunteered to be sacrifices, but there were also those who were voluntold, usually captives of war or losers of flower wars. So what were flower wars? Well, here's the backstory. From 1450 to 1454, crops throughout most of the Aztecs' domain failed due to bad weather, and so a famine occurred. The Aztecs viewed this as the gods being displeased with them, so neighboring villages agreed to get in a pseudo kind of flower war where the losers would be captured and sacrificed. Look, I mean, hey, we're all facing famine here, so this is a kind of way of grouping up together and addressing the need in the only way we know how. Human sacrifices, yay! And so, whenever the need for sacrifices arose, sides would come to an agreement on a flower war, and the fights would commence. And then they do it again. And just for fun, here's the Aztec word for flower wars. Xochiyaoyot. But there were others who were voluntold to sacrifice themselves, and those would be the slaves. But the Aztec forms of slavery were quite unique compared to other cultures. See, you weren't born a slave. Rather, slavery was usually a punishment, and while they weren't being paid for most of what they did, they had far more rights than elsewhere in the world. A lot of the confusion around slavery from Aztec time stems from the fact that there were actually 2 different kinds. The first class were people who were captured in war, like the ones I mentioned previously, who were usually pretty quickly given the kibush and sent off to the gods. The other type of slavery was more common, and more like what I said just a little bit ago. While these slaves had to live on their master's land, do farm work and a certain amount of labor on a regular basis, they still had a lot of rights, and they could technically buy their way out and back into slavery if they wanted. In fact, they could also own property, get married, and advance in their social standing. Also, in Aztec society, it was illegal to mistreat your slaves. And some slaves even had slaves of their own. It's weird, it's mysterious, it only happened in the Aztec Empire, and it involved a lot of Z's. The Aztecs, they like to get down. In fact, it was an important part of their culture, but man if their rules about how they handled their desires weren't strict. First off, adultery. Punishable by death. Having a little bit of free time with yourself. Chemical burns in your lower region. And childbirth, well, that's a battle. For the Aztecs, the goddess Tlaoteotl was the one overseeing all pregnancies and deliveries, and according to her guidance, women had to keep getting down until the 7th month of their pregnancy. Now, I just mentioned that childbirth was a war. Well, because those who lost their life in the process were often treated as heroes, garnering the same respect as a soldier who lost their life in battle. And here's a whole bunch of other weird things involving pregnancy from around that time. The umbilical cord was kept and buried under the home if the child were a female, and if it were male, it would be taken out into battle and buried in enemy territory. Oh, and pregnant women, they couldn't stare at an eclipse, otherwise they'd birth a monster. Yeah, that's a lot of responsibility for someone who doesn't need extra responsibility. And this time, yet another god needs a sacrifice. And this time, it's our friend Xipe Totec. So now it's time for a very fun and easy to pronounce festival that definitely doesn't look like I face planted onto a keyboard. This is important, so I need to say this. Take a look at this word. I'm going to pronounce this word. Tlakashipewalitzli. I think. It's fun to say. not to be in, because this was an ancient Aztec flaying ceremony. Sounds disgusting, right? Well, it was. So here's how things start off. You're butt naked, tied to a stone and covered in feathers. No, it doesn't sound fun. Then some guys dressed in animal skins called Eagle and Jaguar Warriors slice you to bits. Yep, sorry you died. But the fun doesn't end there. Your heart is cut out and raised up as an offering to the sun. It's very kind of you. As for the rest of you, a cane is put where your heart used to be so the sun can you up. Then they toss you down some stairs before making robes out of your skin and a wall mount of your skull. And then so much worse, but I can't say that on this video. And a word of advice for anyone who wants to look up the rest of it, don't search it on an empty stomach. So what's next after you've finished becoming a million different things? Well, it's off to the afterlife, but it isn't an easy ride. So your end goal is Moctlan, but you have 9 levels to go through to get there. So I want you to let me know which of these steps seems the harshest. First, you gotta cross a river with the help of a Sholo Eats Kintli dog. But those dogs are real. They might be hairless, but look at them. They're good boys. I promise. Now you gotta traverse a mountain described as a place where your soul must wait to continue its way. Then your soul has to cross a path of obsidian, an area where your soul witnesses the saddest points of your life, and a place with so much wind that weak spirits get blown away. Mondays, am I right? Now you gotta deal with an area where invisible hands throw arrows at your soul. Level 7 involves getting around a heartless jaguar. 8 is a viewing of your life. And finally you made it. You get to meet Moctlan Tukutli and Mikte Kasiwa for the final reward. Eternal rest. 9 levels for a forever nap. While you might have hit the end of your road, your buddies had to do whatever it took to keep your soul in its journey, and the lengths they were willing to go to were pretty crazy. First, they'd bundle you in a mummy-like thing under your house, along with literally all of your possessions. First, your eyes were closed, a vase of water was poured on your head, because you were going back to the watery womb of the earth, and you were dressed to match your job and status. Also, they'd put a little jade stone under your tongue, so you had some money on your travel. Then pieces of fig tree bark paper were laid onto you, which are each a ticket to get you through the 9 stations I just mentioned. Oh, and then they just wait, because you're not getting buried until 80 days after your passing. 80 days in a mummy wrap looking thing. Look, I know you're dead, but you're stuck inside this thing. And while they are used for death, I would like to say, give me 20 minutes inside one of these. It looks kinda comfy, but I will not stay wrapped inside one of those. Not yet. Do you like dancing? I mean, I have the dancing ability of someone who looks like this, but I can tell you for a fact, I know who knew how to get down. Those Aztecs. And for the most part, it's because they didn't have a choice. Called the Kuakali, there's a lot of cuss sounds. These all-night dance parties were essentially the only way that Aztec boys and girls could socialize, because apart from these social gatherings, they were separated at school. These dance parties gave them a chance to socialize and also learn about their culture, as it gave the adults an opportunity to share stories with the youngest generation of Aztecs. They would then spend the whole night learning about religion and philosophy, but also you're dancing along to some sick songs. And the young Aztecs would learn how to spit some game. I mean, this is the only time you get to see someone of the opposite gender. You gotta learn how to flirt. So think grade 8 dance, only you can't leave. And now I'm having flashbacks to elementary school dances. And I think I'd rather have my soul travel through 9 levels and traverse to the underworld. Ball is life, literally for the Aztecs. Yes, literally. And this was proven in their fun and uniquely named game called Aztec Ball Game. And people still play it to this day, as you can see here. I mean, look at these guys. They have powerful hips. And while the game has been revived, and I mean, yeah, it looks cool. Look at the paint job. One part that hasn't remained is the whole sacrificing the loser part. Seems less than okay in modern society. See, games were often part of a larger ceremony, and sometimes were just straight up rigged. And their preferred form of sacrifice was the good old-fashioned head off. In most art, like this one here, you can see that there's a bunch of skulls in the background. Well, that's because they were skulls. And in some places, they were the ball. Nowadays they use rubber for the ball, which they did for most of the time back then, but a lot of the rules and ways it's played now are passed on from generation to generation, so we don't have a 100% accurate idea of how it's played, which is probably a good thing. Speaking of skulls, those Aztecs really loved just throwing them on racks. Known as tzompantli, you'd see a whole bunch of these if you were to visit large city centers and temples at the height of the Aztec civilization. But these weren't just small little creepy things. No, some are estimated to be as large as 200 feet long and 100 feet wide. They also featured the skulls of thousands of sacrificial victims. If you've learned anything from this video, you can probably guess that yes, These racks were there to honor the gods to whom these victims had been sacrificed. But it was also used to demonstrate the city's power. Now this might be controversial, but I'm pretty sure that if I walked into a big city and saw thousands of big skulls lined up like that, I would be petrified. Now the Spanish conquistadors were certainly frightened the first time they set eyes on the skull racks, and they documented every frightened emotion to make sure we all knew just how creepy those Aztecs really were. They were freaky, but cool freaky, but also freaky freaky. That's our list. I hope you enjoyed your time with the Aztecs and didn't laugh too much at me trying to pronounce words in Nahuatl. Thanks again for watching, make sure to leave a like, and I'll see you in the next one. I think. There's a lot of X's and Y's and T's and L's that aren't pronounced in a lot of these words, as you'll notice. I think this one's Xochitl Oyot. Feel free to add that in the end of me just butchering all the words, I think that'd be pretty funny. First, you gotta cross a river with the help of a Xolo Eats Quintli dog. Another one of those names, man.